everybody, my name is Kara Brown. I am an urban fantasy author and I'm here to talk to you about your website. Or if you don't have a website, I'm about to talk to you about why you need to have an author website. In the last video of this series, I did take the time to actually talk to you about why your marketing plan needs to be done by you and the various platforms that it can be done on, but today we're actually going to focus on the author website itself, the things that you need to have on it, and how basically it benefits you. Now, I've kind of mentioned in the past that your website should be the hub, it should be like the center focal point where basically when you go there, you're able to find other things that are attached to you. And this has to do a lot with your books. And in fact, your website, while it should be kind of like focused on you, it should also be focused on selling your work. Now, one of the unfortunate things when it comes to, marketing your work in the literary world is that it doesn't really matter how many books that you have out there if you don't have a focal point or a hub to work from. And that's where your author website is going to really benefit you, because a lot of times when we, as I've said in the past, when we hear something new or we're not sure what it is, we do an internet search for it, and your website should honestly be one of the first things that comes up. Now, your website is also going to be the thing that gives the first impression of you to many people that you have yet to meet, and that's just why it's really important that we start talking about hosting and theme right now. It is very tempting to actually make a website on a free hosting, but when you work with a free host, you're also working with limited assets, which can end up having your website look very chunky. Now, this video isn't me about to talk to you about, which web hosting person that you should go to or anything like that, but I do want to point out that pitfall because as we're starting out, it's really easy for us to kind of cut the corners on a few things, but you really don't want to cut the corner on your author website because it is going to be very important to you as you continue down the road. Not to mention, you can write it off as a business expense. Now, this kind of leads me into wanting to talk about the theme that you're going to use for your website, and here's what I have to say about theme. Pick one that is going to meet your needs and stick with it. I've seen way too many authors just sit there and spend a whole bunch of money on various themes trying to make sure that their website reflects the most about them and as a character, right down to trying to see which font is more them than not, and stop that. I would pick a theme that you find both aesthetically pleasing and one that is easy for you to work with, and I would move on from that point. If you work with WordPress, there's a number of themes that are writer-author friendly that you can pick from, and that's probably something that you're going to want to stick to as you continue on through your writing journey. However, one note of caution that I will give you is that it is very important for you to read the feedback that is about these themes, because there are some themes that are out there that do look very pretty and very eye-catching, but when you go and you read the comments, you find out that it's very graphic heavy on graphics that are not yours, that you can't use, and then it becomes confusing to upgrade. And if you are okay with working with something like that, then at least know that when you're going in. And everybody is different. I ended up picking a theme that was very minimalistic, very simple, kind of straight to the point, but at the same time it also focuses on my books, which is kind of what I want the website to do for me. I want it to, showcase my work, and I want it to be able to sell my work at the same time. And while it may be very tempting for you to pay somebody to come in and put the theme in and do all the add-ons and everything else for you, I would recommend against that. And the only reason I think that you need to do it is because when stuff breaks, that person may not be working anymore. It may cost more to have somebody come in and fix it versus you can come in and just push a refresh button and everything's fine. So pick something that you can work with, not that somebody can install for you. So carrying on with this conversation, we can go ahead and we can talk about the things that you need to have on your site. So the very first thing that you're going to have is your landing page or your home page. This is basically the page that when people type your web address in, it takes them straight to there. Some authors have it as their blog. I would advise against that. I would use a static page, basically either showcasing your work or saying, hello world, this is who I am and this is what I do. After that comes your bio page. Your bio page needs to have a little blurb about you, any qualifications that you have for writing, maybe an interest or two, along with a photo of you. And I would say that this photo, while it does not need to be professionally done, does need to look professional. In short, no cake stands, no craziness going on, just kind of a profile picture of some sort so that way people can recognize what you look like. After this should come your books or anything that you have written that is accessible to the public. Any reviews that you've gotten should be on those pages as well. I would say that it would be probably better for you to have a subcategory where you basically have books and that kind of branches out, and you can put each one so that way you can put all the information there. After that comes the blog, and yes, you do need the blog because the blog is going to be the thing that keeps your site from being basically stale and kind of keeps it fresh and gives content for people to read. Also keep in mind that your blog is going to be something that your reader's going to use to gauge if they like you and your writing style, so use this as a tool to make a good impression on potential buyers. Now, whatever you decide to blog about is really up to you. A lot of writers usually like to talk about their writing journey, the places that they go, advice, tips, whatever. Just whatever you decide to do, at least be consistent with it. Now, somewhere in your site, whether it be on the footer, the header, a pop-up, wherever, it needs to be a sign up for your newsletter. That has to be a must. On my website, I have it as an actual page where people can go because I have a little bit of information along with a link to a privacy agreement, so that way anybody who signs up for my newsletter knows that I am not giving their information away. I'm not going to dive too deeply into the importance of a newsletter right now. That's a later video, but it does need to be a thing that you're doing, and I would honestly recommend that you use MailChimp for that. Another thing that needs to be somewhere on your website is access to your social media. I have seen some authors actually have a Twitter feed like in a sidebar that people can kind of see, and that kind of keeps the site fresh as well. But as long as you have links somewhere that people can find easily, then you're fine. Now, after that, these other two things I'm going to suggest are going to be optional, whether you put them like as a footer or their own page or whatever you decide to do. But one of the things that I have on my website is I have a sign up for my street team, which is basically a collection of people who are willing to promote the book on their own free time. On that, I basically have the rules of engagement, what they can expect, and the sign up form itself. The other thing that is also optional, but I see that some artists are starting to have more and more on their sites, is basically access to the merch store. And sometimes this will be like mugs with like little sayings that they have, or if you're artistically inclined like I am, you know, they'll have like little doodles or any of the artwork that they do available to be bought on various mediums, like, you know, notebooks or a mug or whatever. Now, however you decide to design this site and whatever content that you decide to put onto it, the one thing that I want you to keep in mind with your author website is that you actually need to have it so that way it's selling both you as an author and it's selling your work. A lot of people who are going to come to your site for the first time are coming to check you out, trying to figure out if you are the author for them, and they need to be able to have something to gauge that by. I would recommend some kind of free content, a short story, access to 3 chapters, whatever you gotta do. Now, I kind of talked about everything that you need to have on the site that makes it kind of appealing and all that jazz, but I do want to talk about the things that you need to avoid. The first pitfall that I usually see that happens to authors is that they pick a site that is not cell phone friendly. It's too graphic, takes forever to load, whatever, it just doesn't work on the phone. And you want to avoid that because a lot of people, when, you know, they have their phones, they use their smartphones to look things up, and that's how they're going to see your site. So when you make your site, take the time to kind of eyeball it on a phone, see how quickly it loads. Try a couple of phones because networks work differently, and you definitely want to make sure that people have easy access to your site. Another thing that happens way too often is that people do not keep their site updated, either with information or they don't have any content that is frequently refreshed. You do not want to have a static site. You want to have it constantly with new things on it because that allows the matrix to have it pop up a lot sooner in the search results. You also need to make sure that your site is very easy to navigate. Usually if somebody goes to a site and it's just too crazy, too many graphics, can't find the menu, whatever, people will leave, and you do not want people to leave. Another thing is that even though I've advised against people having somebody else make the site for them, they'll still do it for whatever reason, and if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do, but at least take the time to learn the site yourself, because the person that installed your site or made the site may not be around forever, and when push comes to shove and you need to have that site fixed or updated or whatever, you won't know who to go to, and it will more than likely cost you a lot of money. Now, in your attempt to be easily accessible and shareable with multiple social media platforms, you may put every option under the sun to be shared with on your site. I would avoid that. I would pick probably the ones that you frequently use yourself and stick with those instead of putting like all 30 of them down, because people do get overwhelmed when they have too many choices to make. Now, I know I threw a lot at you and told you kind of like, you know, things to avoid and what you can do. Something else that you can do on your own free time is to go check out some other author websites. And don't worry, I've got some links below. You can check out those authors, and you can even look at my website and kind of gauge and see how people are making their first impressions, what works well for them, and not trying to tell you to copy it, but kind of see what's a common element that you can use and kind of work that to your benefit. You can also kind of use it as a gauge to figure out what you like and what you don't like about sites. For example, there's a lot of author sites that I look at, and a lot of them have a banner with their face on it, and that's not bad, but that's definitely not something that I like to do. I would rather people see that I am an author and that I have got work, and then if they want to check out my face, they can go look at my bio. But if you actually already know about some things that you like or dislike about a website, would you be willing to comment on that down below, just so that way we can all kind of like see if there's any common elements or a theme, and kind of learn from that using the hive mind that we've got going on here on YouTube. But that's pretty much all I have for you in regards to author websites. I know I didn't talk about hosting or the best way to kind of approach like the selection of themes. mostly because I want to focus on the content that needs to be on your site, and whatever provider that you decide to go with should be honestly a choice that you make. There are a lot of options out there, and a lot of them are customizable, and they do look very pretty. Squarespace is definitely one, but that's not the one that I use. Now, while you're checking out those sites that are down there, including mine, if you just happen to sign up for my newsletter, not only will you get access to a free short story that I've done, but you basically get entered into every giveaway that I have from here on until I don't do them anymore for probably forever. So please feel free to go ahead and do that. I do have some content that I only really tell the subscribers versus the general public. So I would like you to be able to hear the things first before anybody else. But that's all I got for you today. If you actually like the content of this video, please feel free to subscribe. If you want to know when the videos come out, hit the notification bell that's down there. Otherwise, my videos for the month of April coming out on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then after that, they go back to only coming out on Friday. But that's all I got for you. Y'all have a good day.